Hello there, everyone. Happy Higher Self Wednesday. How are you? How are you doing? My name is Karen White, and I am the author of this book, Changing the Game Plan, which is my 12-step journey of how I work the steps with 4 sponsors over my 35 plus years in these rooms, in both rooms, on both sides. I'm on the addictive side as well, and I'm on the non-side. So I've been blessed to be able to see how this program works from 2 sides, and I'm truly grateful for that. I have taken what my sponsors did to change my life 360 degrees plus, and put it in a workbook. I believe it's 56 pages, and it is a workbook. It's meant to work with a sponsor or someone, your therapist, a clergyman or something, but it is a workbook. I use the only 4 books, which is the AA 12 and 12, of course, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I always tell you, no matter what program you're in, you need the big book, because that's where the 12 steps come from. And that is our Bible in the 12-step program. You need the Al-Anon 12 and 12 and the ODAT, because those are the first 4 original books in the program. The big book is the book, and the AA 12 and 12 is really good for the non-addictive side, as well as it is, no matter what program you're in. It doesn't matter if you're in NA, Overeaters Anonymous, CODA, Sex Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, heroin, and it does not matter. The 12 steps came from the big book. And I always say when I'm talking, and I use alcohol because we're talking from the big book, just put your program in there and you will see. And that's what you're doing if you're in the 12 steps. You are practicing the principles that were written from that book anyway. So my book is available on Amazon.com. It's in the Kindle version as well as the hard cover version of it. So go out and order it and enjoy and work it. Work the steps. I mean, it is life-changing. Now, I'm going to say something. This is my journey. So take what you like and leave the rest. It is my personal journey. I have helped hundreds, maybe even thousands of people work the steps using these guidelines, and they have changed their life. And I have seen so many people that have changed their life in just sitting down and concentrating and doing what the big book teaches us to do. So I'm so excited. I love these Higher Self Wednesdays because it gives me an opportunity to go back and study to be able to teach you from the books, whatever book that I'm using that week. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for all your support. I know a lot of people have been trying to reach out to me through Messenger. I do not reach out through Messenger. You can go on programchild.net and under the contacts, send me information, and I will get back to you as soon as possible about speaking or your podcast, whatever you have that you want me to help you with. If I'm available, I will try to help you as much as I can. So I'm so excited. Let's jump into this. Let's get into it. Today is the last day of step 4, and we have had a great time. If you have not seen the previous videos, go back and see the previous videos on step 4, and then also hit like right now. And then if you hit the bell, whenever I post these at noon every Wednesday, it'll just let you know. And feel free to share them with as many people as you want to. They are step studies, so it's good to come with your pen, your pencil, your literature yourself, and then go back over and read things and let your higher power share with you, what he wants you to see in these books as well. Okay, so let's jump in. Let's get started. I'm so excited. I always start off by giving you the definitions of every word in the step because that is so important. Without knowing what every word in the step means, it's hard for us to change. We are 12-step people. We don't just change. That's why the big book is so meaty, because it gives you an understanding of why you are like you are. And when you can see what you're doing and be clear on why, yes, you will change. And that's why it's so important to look up every single word in these steps and really understand why Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson put them together like this. So we're going to start with step 4. And step 4 is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. The word made, it just starts off so powerful. Made means built, formed, or shaped in a specific way. A means into or for each. Searching means to carefully look for someone or something, to try to find someone or something. And means and others or more of the same or similar kind. And that's what's so powerful about these steps, because all through the steps they have the ands, the ours, the we, the theirs, to let you know you are not alone in this. There's millions of us like this, So you are not alone. That's why it's very important that you stay focused on your recovery and get well, because you are not as unique as you think you are. There are millions of us out here. Fearless means not afraid, very brave. Moral means concerning or relating to what is right or wrong in human behavior. Inventory, the act of processing or making a complete list of the things that are in place. The act of processing or making an inventory. Of means belonging to, relating to, or connecting with someone or something. Of, a moral inventory of connecting ourselves to someone or the situations in our life. Ourselves, those same ones that we are. Isn't that powerful, the meaning? And get your dictionary out. And, because all dictionaries have just, other meanings and stuff. And look up every word in these steps, and you will be just totally surprised of how powerful they are, and how by just doing that, it will change your life. Well, we're going to get started. We're going to start today in the Al-Anon 12 and 12. And then we're going to go into the Al-Anon ODAT. Now remember, if you're not in this program, that's fine. Remember that if you're in any non-program, from NAR Anonymous to CODA or whatever non-Anon program you're in, this is the original literature for that program. So you just take whatever your program is, or whatever your addiction, your circumstances is, or your issue is, and put it in there whenever you hear me say alcohol or whatever, okay? So I'm going to start in the Al-Anon 12 and 12, and I'm going to start on page 25. And it's so important. I want you to keep this very simple. And remember, step 4 is nothing but writing down on a piece of paper your inventory. And if you go back in some of the other videos, you will see I even shared my list of how I write down, and I have the people that I sponsor to write down their inventory. So go back in the previous videos, or either when you buy Changing the Game Plan, I have the link to the 4th step layout that I use, which is the same that's in the big book. It's the same layout, the same columns. I just sometimes add a little extra, depending on whether or not the person that I sponsor needs this. And I want to also say this, and it's very, very important to you that are out there sponsoring people. When the person that you know starts the 4th step, please monitor them and make sure they don't step in a 4th step for 2 years. I personally, with my experience and the experience that I have had working with others, I only give them 2 weeks from the day they start writing, 2 weeks, and then we're ready to talk about it, because this stuff that's going on their inventory, it's like opening up a can of worms. And I don't believe that I know I could have never sat on the fourth step doing it for years and years and years and never talking to my sponsor about it. My sponsor gave me a 2-week timeline, and that was it. And we were ready. And wherever I was, we started there, because you will have, remember in this program, you don't do these steps one time. You can do these steps over and over again, and then you learn to practice them in your life. So keep it simple, but monitor it and have them to call you whenever they run into difficulties, because I ran into so much difficulty looking at all my shame and guilt and things that were done to me, not knowing that I had reacted. That's why I needed to put it on that piece of paper. Not that the person slapped me, but I slapped them back. So that's why I had an inventory. So, monitor this and stay with it. On page 25, it says, the process of our personal inventory begins with step 4, in which we tackle the working of getting to know ourselves as we really were. And that is exactly why we're doing this. There is a reason for this madness. And by the time you work 1 through 3, and you get to step 4, and you're in meetings, and you're going to your meetings regularly, and you're talking to your sponsor like you are, you will have an understanding by this that you are ready to know yourself, to know how you tick, to know what you're capable of and what you're made of. And the only way you do this is by writing this 4th step. So it's very important. It goes on to say, maybe we've been so preoccupied with thinking about what others were doing, especially the alcoholic, that we never realized how much our own actions needed examining. And I tell you now, on the non-side of me, I never, ever thought that I had an issue. I always blamed the person that was in my life that was causing the issue of my non-ness at the time for what was going on, or anybody. I blamed anybody. I blamed my parents for being divorced. I blamed anybody. I think at that time, I was just looking for an excuse to stay in my misery, because I knew that if I did not have an excuse, now I know at least that I wouldn't change. So I was looking for that blame and looking for that anger and the reason to react the way that I had practiced acting for so many years. And I did not know how to break that behavior. So with the inventory, we are now going to, with just writing that down, we have in our heart at this time that we have made a decision to try to know ourselves, to try to know, write it down, try to know what's really truly going on in our lives. If you come down to the second paragraph, it says, step 4 was a tool for bringing to light the true source of our problems. And that is no lie. Step 4 is our problems. We're writing down our issues and we're bringing it to full life, but keep it simple. You're not doing step 5. We'll talk about step 5 when we get there. This is step 4, writing it down only. It goes on to say, the third paragraph on page 25. We took an inventory, and then I go down a little bit more, and it says, the step 4 inventory, however, was made up from our personal characteristics as we understood and evaluated them. There's that word again, as we understood and evaluated them. And as we're putting them down, that's why I think it's so important that you as a sponsor are monitoring this, because I know my first 4 step, as I was writing that stuff, I was going through so many emotions. And then I got really afraid. I got so afraid. I was like, how am I going to ever tell all this stuff to somebody that I really don't know that well? Because my first fourth step, I had only known my sponsor maybe about 4 or 5 months. And now I'm getting ready to share all this. So that's why it's very important that you're monitoring it, because as they're telling you and they're kind of sharing things and you're pulling out of them what you think they're really trying to say to you, because that's what we do as sponsors. You can also share your fears and your experience with them to help them get through. Now it goes on to say on page 26, but the sole purpose of the Searching and Fearless Moral Inventory was to shed light on what was preventing us from achieving fulfillment. Isn't that something? What is stopping us? And all that stuff is between us, and we're putting it down on paper so we can discover why we're not being fulfilled. It goes on to say, I love that, above all, we found it important to get a clear picture of our attitudes and actions toward our family members, relatives, friends, and others. It wasn't easy. And then it goes on to say, long established habits were hard to recognize and even harder to change. And that's why I think we need a 10th step too. This part here, that one sentence, long established habits were hard to recognize and even harder to change. You know, they are hard to recognize because you practice them and you really think you're right. So you don't think that you have done anything wrong. You don't think that you're hurting people. You don't. But yet you know that the circumstances are changing. They're not being what you feel that you're trying to portray as you're acting out all these emotions and saying all these things. You're not getting the right response. That's the word that I want to use to what you're doing. And so, and it's very hard to recognize that you have to change these things. If you're not getting the response, it is not what people are receiving from you. And that's very important that we understand that. If you're trying to make your dog walk and he's not walking and you're pulling on the chain, you're doing something that he's not responding to. And that was my whole life for a long time. It seemed like everything that came out of my mouth, a lot of the things that I did, not everything, but a lot, it felt like everything. Let's put it like that. It felt like everything. But a lot of the things I was doing and acting and just being, I wasn't getting the right response to it. And that's why it was so important that I did this inventory, because I was tired of doing things over and over again and expecting, different results, and then weren't getting them. And they call that insanity, by the way. Anyway, we'll talk about that at another time. And it goes on to say on page 26, it goes, this is understandable. It isn't easy to evaluate deep-rooted attitudes and habits. It's not. Because remember, we have practiced these behaviors for years. And we've gotten comfortable with them, even though they're not working out right for us. It's still, we're comfortable with it. And so, the inventory for us is we want to discover something different. We want to discover new habits and behaviors. We do want to change. We don't want to keep being in these situations that we're getting these responses to. And it says, many found it helpful to do a written inventory while others wrote their life stories. When we recorded significant events in our lives and honestly wrote what we felt about them, we often discovered that having lived with an alcoholic has not caused our defects. And that was so powerful to me, to realize that nothing just about nothing. And there are circumstances that cause you to react. It's just like if you touch a fire, you jump and you react because the feeling that goes through you. But that didn't mean that I had to carry that for the rest of my life and live on that feeling like it was the only thing that could control my life. And I was. And so, the fourth step, I wanted that. When I was doing that writing and I was writing all that stuff down, in my heart, I was thinking, I hope this helps me. I really hope this helps me. I had no choice. I was dying. I bottomed out in this room. I had no choice. I had to try something different. And if it didn't work, what are you going to lose? Just write your fourth step. Get over the fear of it. It will work for you. Now, it says, it was important not to condemn ourselves for whatever negative qualities we uncover in this self-study. And that's why when you're doing this and you're going through this, your sponsor is monitoring this and they are helping you through this, and that's why it's very important that when you do a fourth step that somebody knows that you're doing it. It goes on to say on page 27, and I'm starting with the second paragraph. A great lift came as we realized that we were not alone in the undertaking. And that's where sponsorship is so important. I cannot stress how important sponsorship is. Get a sponsor quickly. In the old days, when you came into AA, they would just place you with somebody. A sponsor is so important. It is hard to work this program without a sponsor because, you have to understand that you are not alone and you need somebody. The meetings are good, but the meetings are only an hour. Your sponsor you can call all the time. Sponsors, you can talk to them as much time as they have available for you. Sometimes me and my sponsor talks hours. We just talk and talk and talk. And she's so kind and she's so willing to listen to me. And then she sets up and she shares her experience, strength, and hope and advises me through the program and what the program teaches, me to do for myself. And I always say her advice is a reminder of what I should do in the program. It goes on to say, the guidance and support of the higher power was always at hand, reinforced by understanding and loving friends in the Al-Anon program. Love that. And this part, it says, it was only our own improvement we were striving for. Our own flaws we wanted to remove. And you only get that by sitting down and working these steps in order. And when you're writing that inventory, that's all you are thinking about is your stuff and how you can make it better for yourself. And that is probably the first time in my life that I had really taken the time to think about that. And think when I was writing that this was just my stuff. And the reason I was doing this is because I wanted to change. I wanted to get better. Even though I didn't know what was going to happen, I had to take the chance. And it goes on to say, the main advantage of such a list was that it showed us to contrast our own undesired characteristics with the good ones that offset them. Love that. And the last part on page 27, which is the last paragraph, kind of in the middle, it says, then too, it was to be a moral inventory, one dealing directly with the distinction between what was right and wrong in our conduct. And that is what you're concentrating on when you're writing that. What was right and wrong in our conduct. And at that time, I really didn't know that. I really didn't know that I was really doing that. What I was writing was things that had just my problems, things that were bothering me, things that had hurt me, things that were affecting me. And when I got into the fifth step, which we're going to move into that next month, I'll share with you, some of how I came to that realization. I'm going to go to the One Day at a Time in Al-Anon right now, and I'm going to look at page 100 in the ODAT and start with this. It says, let me see, I want to make sure that I'm on the right page for you. It's actually 101. I'm sorry. It says, what am I really searching for in my life? Interesting activities to meet the obligations to my family or friends, to make myself into the kind of person I will enjoy living with. And that's so important, living with. I may not realize all of these ideas, but it is a joy to work toward them. And that's what the fourth step is working toward, by writing this stuff down and preparing to work towards something better. Even though you don't know at the time what it's going to be like on the fifth step, but you just know that you just know that you know that you know by now. And that's from working steps 1, 2 through 3, that something's going to change. It says, watching myself grow little by little. It says, one good way is to take a really searching inventory and examine my motives. I need to understand why I do what I do and say what I say. This will help me to realize the kind of person I really am and give me constructive ideas for improving what I don't like about myself. That's what you're doing when you're writing this down. It says, today's reminder, it is far easier to be honest with other people than with myself. As it says, all of us are hampered to some degree by our need to justify our actions and words. Admitting my faults to myself, to God, and another human being, as suggested by step 5 of the 12 steps, will give me a glimpse of the wonderful person I could be. I will pray for self-fulfillment and through conscious effort make some headway toward being at peace with myself, which is my ultimate goal, embracing all others. And that was my ultimate goal when I finally got into that 4-step writing, to, have some peace. I wanted peace. I wanted peace. And if it took me talking about this stuff, I just had to talk about it, because I knew, and without a doubt, that I wanted peace in my life, and that I had to examine this stuff. I had to. And this is why your meetings are important, because you're sitting in your meetings. And back then we used to do step studies on step 4, and people would share, how they got through it. And therefore it gave me the courage and the strength to start writing, and knowing that, if this happened for them, I couldn't wait. That's why studying the steps are so important. It gives you that hope, that you can't wait. If it happened for her, I know it's going to happen for me. That was my thing in writing the step 4. It changed her. I know it's going to change me. It changed him, whatever, but that's why we do that. I'm going to read one more page before I end. I'm going to read page 170 in the ODAT. And it says, the Greek philosopher Socrates said, know thyself. Step 4 tells us how to get about it, making a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. We are to see ourselves as we really are, our characteristics, motives, attitudes, and actions. A deep-rooted habit of self-justification may tempt me to explain away each fault as I uncover it. Will I blame others for what I do on the ground that I am compelled to react to their wrongdoings? That was huge, because a lot of my inventory was my reaction to wrongdoings. It says, it has been said that even a trained psychiatrist cannot analyze himself because of such blocks. This will challenge me to prove that personal honesty and humility can achieve what superior knowledge often cannot. Today's reminder: a total inventory of my good and bad qualities can be interesting and useful as I start on my work with step 4. But when I am ready to dig in and correct my shortcomings, I will work on only 1 or 2 at a time and for as long as it takes to satisfy me that I have made real progress in erasing them. Perfection is a long way off, but improvements can be made to happen every day. Every day we can improve. And that's what the program was for me. Every day we have the tools to improve little by little. Some days were bigger improvements than others, but I have the ability every day to make some kind of change in my life. And are you going to receive that? Do receive that. Receive this program. The 12-step program is the best program on working on yourself and giving you tools to continue on a journey that you just get better and better and better and better. And I love it. I love it. And I hope you love it too. Stay with it. Fight for yourself. I always say this. Fight for yourself. It works. It's worked for millions, and it will work for you. You just have to stay with it and fight for it. Well, this is the end. I like these videos to be very short and brief and to the point for you. But join me next week on Higher Self Wednesday at noon on Program Child, and we're going to be starting step 5. I'm looking forward to it. And you know how I end all these videos. Continue to work the steps, go to meetings, read your literature, and get better. Use your tools. Get better. Blessings over you today, great people.